everyone! So before we jump into today's video, I just want to quickly mention that I'm going to be doing an awesome giveaway of some wonderful watercolor supplies just for beginners. So make sure you stick around to the end of this video to find out how to enter. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So starting a new art medium can be totally overwhelming. You don't know where to start, you don't know what supplies you need, you don't know what to practice. Well, today I'm going to be going through all of that information for you, so let's jump right in. Okay, so you walk into your favorite art store and you want to start painting with watercolor. But there are 20 different types of paper, 50 different types of paint, all these different brushes, and you have no idea where to begin. Well, I'm going to take you on a little tour through Michael's and show you exactly what to get. So let's go.
When choosing watercolor paper, the first thing you want to look at is the weight of the paper. You do not want anything below 140 pounds. If it is, it will be flimsy and thin and it will not be very good quality. The paper I first started using are these Canson watercolor notebooks. They're great for beginners and great for practicing. There's a lot of paper in there and they're not very expensive. But there is quite a difference between this paper and higher quality paper, so do not get discouraged. Other brands such as Strathmore are also great for beginners. They're fairly cheap and there's lots of paper. Just look for that 140-pound cold press paper. Now, if you're looking for a brand that is a step up of the Strathmore and Canson, I would go for B watercolor paper. They come in packs of 25 pre-cut sheets and are great for practicing. That is my practice paper of choice. Now for my absolute favorite, Arches cold press watercolor paper. It's 100% cotton and it's really good quality. This is a watercolor block, which is $119. You do not want to get that. Get the pads that are on for $39.99. Also, I always use my 50% off coupon when they have them at Michael's to purchase them half price, so I never pay $39.99. Now, if you're interested in what the actual difference is between lower and high quality paper, make sure to look at my video below of It's Not You, It's Your Paper, just to see what the actual difference is.
So really, it's up to you which paper you pick, okay? If you're an absolute beginner and you don't even know if you like watercolor yet, and say you're on a budget, go with something cheaper. Just make sure to look for that 140-pound. You don't want anything thinner than this because your paper will warp and it will get quite frustrating. Now, if you do use this paper and you get frustrated because you find that your paintings are not looking like mine or other artists, it is most likely because you're a beginner, and two, because of your paper. Paper quality makes a huge difference in your paintings, but there is absolutely nothing wrong with starting here. I used Canson watercolor paper for the first 2 years of my art journey before I upgraded to Arches. I know Arches can get a little bit expensive. So what I actually do when I do use Arches is I cut these sheets that are 10 by 14 inches into quarters. So I only work on a quarter at a time. And people are always so worried to waste this paper because it can get quite pricey. But you know what? Sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet if you can. But what I have found is a great alternative. The B watercolor paper is not as great of quality as Arches, but it is definitely a step up from other watercolor papers I've tried before. I use this all the time as practice paper, and I use it a lot in my videos now too because I don't want to use my Arches all the time. This is a great alternative. If you've been practicing for a bit with your Canson paper and you're getting a little bit frustrated, upgrade to the B watercolor paper. This runs for about $19.99, and if you go to Michael's, you can get that 50% off coupon or 45%, and then it's even cheaper. And I think it may be even cheaper on Amazon, so I definitely check that out. So paper, don't fret. I've got you. If you have any more questions about paper, just ask below.
So next we're moving on to paint. This is an Artist Loft paint palette from Michael's. That's actually what I started with. It's cheap, there's lots of colors, and if you just want to kind of just start dabbling with watercolor, there is no shame in picking up one of these. So I definitely suggest you try it if you've never tried watercolor before. There are also other types like liquid watercolors and the watercolor pods that you can get, but I am going to give you my suggestion on my favorite paints to use.
So like I said, you can always purchase one of these cheap watercolor palettes. It is what I started with, and you know what? It served me pretty well for the beginning. Once I realized I really loved watercolor, I went to a watercolor workshop and I was given some of these and I fell in love. I haven't tried many other tubes because I don't really have the budget to go around buying all different kinds of paints and just trying them out for fun. So I fell in love with these and I continued to use them. And then lots of other artists that I was following were using them too, so I have just stuck with them. These tubes can run from between $4 to $10, the small ones, and they're honestly great. I love them. The Cotman ones are student grade. They're not the professional ones, but I have tried some of the professional paints, and besides the fact that these ones will probably last longer, like on paper, on a painting, in the long run, I think these are pretty good quality too, and they don't break the bank like the professional ones do. So I would definitely recommend getting a few tubes of the Cotman, Winsor, and Newton watercolors, and I'll show you which colors I suggest you start with. So I just quickly wanted to mention that I know that these tube watercolors can get quite expensive, especially if you think you have to buy all the colors, which you don't. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into which colors you might want to start with. So the primary colors are always a great place to start. Here I have cadmium yellow pale hue. They actually didn't have just plain cadmium yellow when I was looking for a yellow. So I would suggest getting a cadmium yellow hue, not the pale hue. It's very similar, but just the regular cadmium yellow is great. Turquoise for a blue. I really like the vibrancy of this turquoise, but another great option is ultramarine blue, which is a bit of a warmer blue. I just don't have it with me today. I've kind of used it all up. And then cadmium red deep. So I do have a cadmium red hue, but this one is a little bit more orangey. And I find it's a lot harder to achieve that nice deep red with this. So if you want to go for a nice deep red, I would suggest cadmium red deep. But cadmium red hue does work. It just looks a bit more on the orangey side. So I would start off with these three, but I would also add permanent rose. I have the big tube of permanent rose because I am a huge fan of it. And it's also great for mixing really beautiful purples with different colors of blue. So these are the four I would recommend getting. You can create, honestly, tons and tons of colors with just these four paints, different combinations. I have a couple videos on color mixing, so I really suggest you check those out in case you're like, okay, well, what else can you make besides like the secondary colors with your primary colors? I'm telling you right now, between the different values you can make with really like dark colors and light colors, you can also add different levels of each paint and make some really beautiful combinations, okay? So those are the four I suggest. If I were to add a couple more, I would add Hooker's Green Dark, which is one of my favorite greens, as well as Sap Green, which I always tend to use. You can achieve a sap green by adding Hooker's Green Dark and cadmium yellow, but I use this color so much that I don't always want to have to mix it. So if you can, you know, afford to splurge on another green and you think you'll use it a lot, I really like sap green. I also love dioxazine purple and mauve. You can achieve kind of mixing a mauve color with permanent rose and turquoise. And same kind of with dioxazine purple. But again, if you just want a straight purple, I really like these two. I think I might like the mauve a bit better. And then some other fun colors that I just use all the time are indigo, which is a really nice deep, deep blue. Payne's gray, which is a gorgeous gray. And I do use black ivory quite a bit as well. I don't use it to darken my paints, but I use it when I need some black detail in my work. And I think that's about it. These are like my top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. My top 11. But these are some that are really great. Definitely you could take away some of these purples. You could take away sap green because you can make that. Take away Payne's gray, it's not necessary. You could always mix a bit of ivory black and indigo to make kind of like this Payne's gray look, but don't overwhelm yourself with the amount of colors that you need. It can get quite expensive, so don't, just maybe purchase them over time, or if someone asks you what you want for your birthday, maybe a tube here and there would be great. The collection I have is something I've worked up over many years, okay? I didn't go out and buy all these paints at once. I bought a few here and there, okay? Also, what I'd like to mention about these paints is because they are tubes and I let them dry in my palette overnight, they last a lot longer. So you might look at these paint tubes and think that's not very big, but if you see the amount that I put in my palette, I barely used half of it, maybe a fifth or a quarter just for this, and this will last a few months. You let it dry and you use it, it will last you a few months. So the value that you're getting for these paints that can run from between like $5 to $10, in my opinion, are worth it.
Oh, brushes. There's so many of you, so many different price points, shapes, types. It can get pretty overwhelming. So the first thing I'm going to suggest is heading on over to my video entitled Everything I Know About Brushes to give you better detail into what to look for. But basically, what I look for are round brushes just like that with a nice tip, a nice point, and synthetic hair. I do not like the real hair brushes. I find that the bristles fall out a lot easier, especially if they're lower quality. So go for either of those white Taklon brushes or those orange ones. As long as they're synthetic hair, I think they are a lot easier to use.
Okay, so you're back home now and you have all your supplies. How do you use them? What do you do? Let's try them out.
So you've purchased your paint. Either you got a really inexpensive watercolor palette or maybe you got the tubes. But either way, I'm going to show you how to use them. So to use watercolor, you need one thing and one thing only to activate it, and that is water. So make sure you have your jar of water with you and your paintbrush and some paper towel. So all you do is you dip your paintbrush into the water and you swish it around your dried paints, and that activates the paint. So you may also be wondering, how much water do I need on my brush? How much paint do I need? I do have a separate video that I will link below where I go over all of the ins and out of water control and loading your brush. But for now, just put enough water on that you get a small puddle in that little pan that you can pick up enough color. If you notice that you have too much water on your brush, you can always dab it on your paper towel or run it against the side of your jar. Also, don't forget to wash your brush in between picking up new colors. So now I'm going to move on and show you how to use the tube watercolors. I love the Winsor & Newton ones the best. I use the Cotman brand, which are the student grade, but I still find they're great quality. The one thing you do need to use the tube colors is a paint palette. They do have paint palettes at Michael's, but I prefer the ones that open and close. They're great for traveling, and they also keep the dust out of your paints. This one I got off Amazon. It was only about $6 and I absolutely love it. I will link it below in my materials, so make sure you go and check that out. The other thing I didn't pick up at Michael's were brushes. My absolute favorite brushes are Princeton snap brushes. Where I'm located, they're not that expensive. You can also get them on Amazon. They're a bit pricier on there, but they are definitely worth it. Otherwise, just go to your local art store and pick a nice round brush in a size maybe 12 or a 4 for variety. Check out my video, Everything I Know About Brushes, and that will help guide you on what to look for in a good brush. So now it's time to load your paints into your palette. The first thing you're going to do is organize them of where you want to place them. I usually put them in the order of the colors of the rainbow, so purple, pink, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and then some blacks and browns or whatever else I have. But I know some artists like to separate them between warm and cool colors, but it is totally up to you and there's no wrong way to do this. So basically all you do is unscrew that cap and you start squeezing that wet paint out into one of the wells that you have picked. There's no need to mix it or add anything to it. That's all you do. So you're going to do that with each of them. And then what you're going to do is let all your paints dry overnight. Leave your paint palette open and let it dry. Now the reason why I do this is because I believe that they last a lot longer when you use them dry. If you use them straight out of the tube, you tend to use a lot more paint and can be a bit wasteful. This way, you don't have to replenish your tube paints as often.
Okay, so once your paint in your palette is completely dry, this is my palette because I'm still waiting for the other one to dry. It needs to dry overnight. Just leave it open to dry. They'll look like this. They'll be nice and hard and dry. Okay, so the other things you're gonna need to paint. You need your paints in your palette. You're gonna need your watercolor paper. And if you recall, I said try to get something that is 140 pounds and cold press. That is my favorite. The weight of the paper just means the thickness. So if it's a less weight, it will be a lot thinner and your paper will be flimsier and the water will seep through. So you don't want to do anything below 140 pounds. And I like cold press. Cold press means it has a bit more texture to it. Hot press paper means a very smooth texture. I'm not a fan of that kind of paper. Some people are.
And if I were to suggest one thing to really invest your money in, it would be high quality paper. It can make all the difference in your artwork.
Okay, then you're gonna need a brush. I'm actually gonna use this one that I got from Curry's and it was fairly cheap. It's just a local art store in Toronto. And I'll just show you how to use a cheaper brush. It has synthetic hair, which I like. I do not get the real hair ones. I just find that they lose their bristles a lot faster. So I'm gonna use this, and you need a jar of water and paper towel. Some artists use 2 jars of water for like warm and cool colors. Some use them as dirty water and then clean water if they want to add clean water to their painting. I'm not as diligent with my water. I don't really find too many issues with just using one. But if you notice that your colors start to get muddy after a while on your paintings, change your water or get 2 jars of water. Okay, and then you need paper towel. So paint, paper, paintbrush, water, paper towel, that is all you need. So as I start painting, you're gonna realize there is quite a bit of a difference between this paint and this paint palette. The finish of these paints come out quite chalky. I don't know if you can see this, but like sometimes even if you rub your finger on it, the paint, like the pigment will come off, which won't happen with these. These are higher quality. So I do suggest getting these maybe a couple colors at a time. But yeah, so we're gonna start. So in order to activate these paints, all you have to do is put your paintbrush in the water and you don't have to wipe it off. You can have lots of water just to activate them. And you're gonna swish it around your paints, okay, until you get kind of like a nice little puddle, all right? Now, the more you do that, the more paint you're gonna collect on your brush. If you look at my brush, it's pretty saturated with paint. You can put it in these little wells to see like how dark the color is. The more paint you have, the darker the color will be. The more water you have, the lighter the color will be. So I usually don't go straight from mixing to my paper because you can get a lot of water on your paper, which is not necessarily what you want. But to activate the colors, I will put a lot of water in there. Maybe I'll add some over here. And I'll wash off my brush and I run it against the side. I do a whole tutorial on water control, so I definitely suggest you check that out. You can even dab it a bit on your paper towel, and then I pick up the color, okay? And all you do is you start painting. So I'm not gonna go through the basics in this video. I do have a few other videos that go through watercolor basics. I'm gonna link all the videos of mine that I've done that are great for beginners, basics, things to paint, tips like water control and composition. All of those videos are gonna be linked below, so please be sure to check them out. This is just getting you started with what you need and what to practice, okay? So that is how you activate your paints and you paint with them. I'll show you very quickly. So this is a dark shade, a dark value of this green that I have. And to get a lighter value, all you're gonna do is you're gonna take your brush and add water, okay? Add water to these wells. So you have these little spaces that are for your paints, and then these are your mixing wells. This is where you can do all your mixing. So in order to get a lighter value of a color, all you do is take the water from your brush and add it to the well, okay? And then because you don't want too much water on your paper, wash off your brush, run it against the side. You can even dab it on your paper, then pick up that light color. Okay, in watercolor, they do have white paints. I don't use white paint. For watercolor, I do use white ink if I'm doing some detail later on, but it's very rare. So in order to get lighter colors, I add water instead of white because you still want that really nice watercolor transparency. Okay, so I'm just gonna give a quick little lesson on mixing colors. So like I said, these are the mixing wells. Now, I have a ton of colors, so I don't always need to mix up colors, but if you're just starting out and you just get a few colors, I will recommend a few colors to start with that are great for mixing. So yeah, you don't need all these colors, but to mix colors, all you have to do is activate your paints, and I'll just show you a really nice dark green that I like to make. So you can either take this green, which is Viridian green. So you're gonna activate your paint and you're gonna add it to your well. Then I'm gonna wash it off, okay? Get all that pigment off, run it against the side. If your other paint's already activated, if they need to be activated, you don't have to run it against the side. Add it to the other color you want to mix it with. So I'm gonna mix it with this dioxazine purple. I'm just gonna activate it and then I'm gonna add it to that space, okay? And you get this really nice darker green. Sorry, that was my dog. Okay, and that's how you mix colors. You bring the color over to the mixing wells, wash off your brush, bring the other color over and mix it, okay? And the great thing about, sorry, my dog is going crazy. The great thing about these mixing wells is that you can reuse the colors that are in here. So once this dries, I can reuse this color. These are all dry from previous paintings I've done, but I will show you. Once you add water, you can reuse these colors. So I'm just mixing, I'm just mixing this red I already had in here and I can use it, okay? So you can reuse all of these colors. I'll show you right here. This is completely dry. Wash off my brush, add water, and I can use the colors I have previously mixed, which I tend to do a lot, okay? I am going to go see what is wrong with my dog. Okay, my dog is just being dramatic. There's nothing, it's probably a fly. Okay, so there's the basics of how to get started. Your supplies that you need, you know, where to put your paints, how to mix them. Now it's up to you to go and research other videos. I will link all of my other videos below that are great for beginners and beginner lessons. I don't recommend just jumping right into a painting. It can get quite frustrating if you don't know the basics. So like making lighter and darker values, blending, color bleeds, all that stuff I go through in my other videos. So please check those out first. And also, I just want to say, don't get overwhelmed with watercolor. It may seem like it's complicated and difficult, but it's actually really quite easy. And it's something that just takes a lot of practice, like anything in life. So don't expect to paint like Picasso your first try. You know, I've been working on this for years and it just takes a lot of time and practice, but it's so relaxing and so fun. So just keep at it. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me at any time, comment below. You can reach me on Instagram, I always respond. And yeah, I hope that relieves some of the stress of starting watercolor. And that's about it. Now, because I love sharing my favorite things, I want to give you newbies a chance to win some awesome watercolor supplies just to get you started. So first I'm going to be giving away some B watercolor paper. It comes with 25 sheets, this Princeton snap brush, as well as this palette that I have filled up with some Winsor Cotman paints. All you have to do to enter is make sure you're subscribed to this channel and comment below on why you want to start watercolor and where you're from. Best of luck to all of you. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for more. Have a great day, guys. Bye.